The hidden struggles of hypersexuality, when desire becomes a burden. Imagine a world where your most primal instincts constantly overpower your rational thoughts, where the line between pleasure and pain blurs, and where the very essence of human connection becomes both your greatest desire and your deepest fear. Welcome to the complex and often misunderstood realm of hypersexuality. In our society, sex is often celebrated, commodified, and even glorified. But what happens when sexual desire spirals out of control, consuming one's thoughts, actions, and very identity? This is the reality for those grappling with hypersexuality, a condition that challenges our understanding of human sexuality and the delicate balance between desire and self-control. The labyrinth of uncontrollable desire. Hypersexuality, at its core, is a condition characterized by persistent and uncontrollable sexual urges and impulses. But to truly understand its impact, we must delve deeper into the labyrinth of the hypersexual mind. The tyranny of fantasy. Picture this: you're sitting in an important meeting trying to focus on the presentation before you. Suddenly, your mind wanders, and you find yourself engulfed in an intense sexual fantasy. The fantasy feels more real, more urgent than the reality around you. Minutes pass, maybe even an hour, and you realize you've missed crucial information. This scenario, while occasional for many, is a daily struggle for those with hypersexuality. These fantasies aren't mere daydreams. They're all-consuming visions that hijack the mind, leaving the individual feeling helpless and out of control. It's as if the mind has become a theater playing an endless loop of erotic scenes, with no off switch in sight. Question to ponder: how thin is the line between a healthy fantasy life and one that interferes with daily functioning? For many of us, sexual urges are a natural part of life, often arising and subsiding like waves on a calm sea. But for those with hypersexuality, these urges are more like a tsunami, overwhelming, destructive, and seemingly impossible to resist. Imagine feeling an irresistible pull towards sexual behavior, especially when life becomes challenging. It's as if your brain has been hardwired to seek sexual gratification as the ultimate solution to every problem. Stress at work? Seek sex. Feeling anxious? Seek sex. Overwhelmed by life? You guessed it, seek sex. This pattern creates a vicious cycle, where the individual uses sexual behavior as a coping mechanism, much like how others might turn to alcohol or drugs. The relief is temporary, but the consequences can be long-lasting. Historical parallel. This compulsive seeking of pleasure as an escape from pain is reminiscent of the ancient Roman practice of bread and circuses, where the ruling class provided food and entertainment to distract the masses from societal problems. In the case of hypersexuality, sex becomes both the bread and the circus. The hamster wheel of repetition. Consider the Greek myth of Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll back down each time. This endless, fruitless labor mirrors the experience of many individuals with hypersexuality. They may find themselves engaging in repetitive sexual behaviors, not out of pleasure, but out of an inexplicable compulsion. The act itself may bring little to no satisfaction, yet they feel powerless to stop. It's as if their body is acting on autopilot, disconnected from their desires and values. This repetitive behavior often comes with a hefty price tag: strained relationships, compromised health, legal troubles, or financial ruin. Yet, like Sisyphus with his boulder, they continue, trapped in a cycle they didn't choose and struggle to escape. The mirage of control. Just stop. Exercise some self-control. Think about something else. These well-intentioned pieces of advice often fall flat in the face of hypersexuality. Many individuals with this condition report numerous attempts to rein in their fantasies, urges, and behaviors, only to find themselves falling back into old patterns. This struggle for control is akin to trying to hold back a flood with bare hands. The harder one tries, the more overwhelming the force becomes. This repeated failure to control one's impulses can lead to feelings of shame, inadequacy, and hopelessness. Philosophical question. If our actions are driven by forces beyond our conscious control, how do we define free will and personal responsibility? Sex as an emotional anesthetic. In our quest to understand hypersexuality, we must recognize its role as a coping mechanism. For many individuals, sexual behavior becomes a form of self-medication, a way to numb the pain of loneliness, depression, anxiety, or stress. Imagine feeling a deep, aching void within yourself. Now imagine discovering that sexual activity temporarily fills that void, providing a brief respite from emotional pain. It's not hard to see how this discovery could lead to a reliance on sex as an emotional painkiller. However, like any anesthetic, the effects are temporary. The underlying issues remain unaddressed, often worsening over time. It's a classic case of treating the symptom rather than the cause, with sex becoming both the medicine and the poison. Walking the tightrope of risk. Risk-taking behavior is another hallmark of hypersexuality. This might manifest as engaging in unprotected sex, paying for sexual services, or having multiple sexual partners. But why would someone knowingly put themselves in harm's way? The answer lies in the complex interplay between the brain's reward system and impulse control mechanisms. For individuals with hypersexuality, the thrill of risky sexual behavior can provide an intense dopamine rush, temporarily drowning out negative emotions and rational thought. It's similar to the adrenaline junkie who seeks ever more dangerous stunts. The higher the risk, the greater the reward, at least in the moment. But like any high-wire act, the potential for a devastating fall is always present. Thought experiment. If you could experience intense pleasure knowing it might lead to significant harm, would you? At what point does the potential for harm outweigh the promise of pleasure? The mask of secrecy. Shame is often the constant companion of those struggling with hypersexuality. In a society that simultaneously glorifies and stigmatizes sex, individuals with this condition often find themselves trapped in a web of lies and secrecy. They may go to great lengths to hide their behaviors, creating elaborate cover stories or living double lives. This deception, while born out of fear and shame, often serves to deepen the cycle of guilt and isolation. The burden of carrying such secrets can be immense, affecting not just the individual but also their relationships with loved ones. Trust becomes a casualty, eroded by half-truths and outright lies. The paradox of intimacy. Perhaps one of the most poignant aspects of hypersexuality is its impact on relationships. Ironically, those who crave sexual connection often struggle the most with forming and maintaining healthy relationships. This paradox stems from the conflation of sex with intimacy. While sex can be an expression of intimacy, it is not intimacy itself. For individuals with hypersexuality, the constant pursuit of sexual gratification can actually hinder the development of deeper emotional connections. It's like trying to quench thirst with salt water. The more one consumes, the thirstier one becomes. The pursuit of sexual encounters may temporarily alleviate feelings,